Hey, hoopballers, are you into sports betting? Do you want to know why a certain game has a funky line? Well, Hoopball has you covered. Today in Sports Betting is a great addition to all your handicapping questions with hosts Ira Silver and Devin Ellington. We break down game lines and future bets on all sports and try to make some money along the way. Follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Gaming, at Ira Silver Magic, and at DALE007. And download Today in Sports Betting in the App Store, Google Play, and available on Spotify.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Hoop Ball DFS Today podcast. I am your host, Mike Apotria, and it's Wednesday. Wednesday night. Thursdays when you guys are listening to this. As always, we're recording this the night before. And I am joined by the wonderful Aaron Asmus to break down not one slate, but we're going to be talking about both slates, the early slate, 2-game slate on DK, as well as the 5-game main slate. But more importantly, man, we haven't spoken a week. How you been, brother?
Yeah, man, been pretty good. Was a really good week for me. I think our last podcast, we hit on everything almost perfectly. So hopefully you guys listened to us last week, and if you did, you probably made some good money.
Yeah, it's always nice when you get everything clicking on all cylinders on one of those nights where everything on the pod hit. We both were on a lot of those similar plays, and for good reasoning, clearly, because I had a great night that night. And hey, listeners, if you guys ever have one of those good nights, because I know me and Aaron, we took home a little bit of coin that night. Not the whole nuts, but we did all right. And if you guys have any of those big wins, share them with us. We'd love to see that kind of stuff. And we know that we're never building the lineups for you guys. You're out there building them. But just having a little bit of a hand in something once in a while makes us feel a little bit better over here. So if you have one of those, don't be afraid to share them. If you want to tag in Hoop Ball, we'd love to see that kind of good stuff. But our goal, man, and we're gonna try to repeat that process. Have one of those. Maybe it's like a Thursday thing for us. Maybe that's gonna be our slate. Let's repeat that process. We got 7 games to talk about, so we'll jump right into this. Before we do, though, real fast, just a quick shout out to our presenting sponsors over there at Manscaped. Absolutely crushing it. I was just on with Santino talking about it. I went out there. I got that perfect package, and it does come with a Lawnmower 3.0. Comes with toner, conditioner, a nice little pair of boxers, and a T-shirt as well. So nice little goodies. Use the promo code HoopBall20, HOOPBALL20 to get 20% off plus free shipping. You will not regret this purchase, and I can assure you of that. It is a luxury that will change, I would say, your cleanliness habits. So check them out. But let's jump right into this, brother. Early slate. First game on the docket, Boston Celtics going against the Washington Wizards, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time game. And they do actually have a spread released for this right now, or a game total of 230.5. And Boston is actually being favored by 10.5 points. And hey, that does not look like it's updated.
Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah, that's probably pre-injury release or rest release, because Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Daniel Tice, Kemba Walker are all resting. As far as the Wizards, it's just Garrison Matthews who has not been with the team, so they should have a full team available. So obviously, only a 2-game slate, but looks like if you need any value, you're going to be able to find it right here. So before we jump into all the value, though, let's just get this Washington team right out of the way. Pretty much, I think we know the main guys that we've been targeting and that we're willing to target, but they're not going against that same old typical Boston defense that scares us away from these perimeter guys. So who are you really looking at to target?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it before that on this little 2-game slate, salary doesn't matter at all. So even though Troy Brown, he finally is priced where he should be. He's kind of been one of the better values of the bubble at 6,800. It kind of doesn't matter. It's he's the guy who's involved in their offense. He's the guy they want to really develop and get a good look at if he can be kind of a core piece next to Bradley Beal and John Wall next season. And yeah, I think Troy Brown Jr. would be a core play for me. And then Thomas Bryant at 8K is another guy. I think you're probably playing. We'll talk about the Celtics centers when we get there, but yeah, I think this is an excellent bounce back spot. He's going to be facing Enes Kanter. Robert Williams is an excellent defender, but if they don't limit his minutes again, which I think was more or less tied to the Wizards getting blown out, this is just going to be another really great spot for him. And with the bigger price hike, I think maybe he's a little less owned than he should be on this slate. So I would really key in on those two guys.
All right, yeah, I'm with you on Troy Brown. I mean, now that he's pretty much primarily playing point guard, just the opportunity for assists are there. He's been getting rebounds left and right, 6, 8, 10, and 8 over the past 4 games. And in all 4 of those games, he's taken at least 14 shot attempts. So he's absorbing a ton of usage. I'm all for it. Like you said, price tag doesn't matter. If it was 6,800 and it's like a 6 or 7 game slate when we had options, that would be a different story. But, I have no problem paying that price tag. Thomas Bryant, I like this matchup. If I knew he was playing 30, 35 minutes, I'd be all for it. Like you said, money doesn't necessarily matter. But there are 2 centers that I do have a lot of interest in, and on only this 2-game slate. One of them you already mentioned. We'll get to that. We'll get to that side of the ball in a minute. And then I guess not looking at it at point per dollar, just raw point standpoint, Bryant probably does have the highest upside of any of these centers. So right. I don't mind taking a look at him. I'll probably leave Ish Smith and Napier out. Don't really feel like juggling those guys, especially if they're both healthy. And then if I had to pick a third option, I'd have to look at Jerome Robinson. This guy's just been balling out, tons of usage. 33 minutes in the last game, put up 31 DK points, and then put up 35 DK points in the game before that, only playing 29 minutes. We don't really have to worry about any of these perimeter guys. I mean, when we're talking about some of the guys that are going to actually be, playing a little bit more, we're talking about Brad Wanamaker, who is pretty lackadaisical on defense. Carson Edwards. I don't know if they'll go as deep down to Tremont Waters, but none of those guys are anything close to a good defender. So I don't mind taking a look at a guy like Jerome Robinson as well.
Yeah, and kind of at this point in the season, we're looking for motivation for these guys to play. And Jerome Robinson, he's had a pretty good bubble overall, and he's a young guy who they want to get developmental minutes for. So I think he's pretty secure in that 28 to 32 minute range, which on this kind of slate, it's that's a value in itself, regardless of his price tag.
Yeah, those are the 3 guys I'm looking at. I wouldn't mind Rui. Rui is probably makes the most sense for my initial builds. Like I said, if I'm looking at 2 other centers as well, I can still get exposure to that front court with Rui if I'd like. And he should have a pretty, I wouldn't say a cakewalk matchup. Most likely you get a nice handful of Semi Ojeleye, who's a big-bodied dude, but does not have as much height like Rui does. So Rui might be able to get up over him for those jump shots. So ready to slide over to Boston?
Let's do it.
Boston. So we talked about all these starters out. What can we expect from a starting lineup? I would expect, Brad Wanamaker likely starting at the 1. Carson Edwards or Romeo Langford. Probably it's tough. Probably Langford at the 2.
Yeah, I think you go Langford.
Yeah.
And then I think Javonte Green would probably slot in. And then Grant Williams or Ojeleye at the 4.
Yeah, I know they'd probably play Grant Williams at the 4. Maybe even the 5, Ojeleye at the 3. And if they're playing Williams at the 4 or at the 5, then they'd push Ojeleye up. But that doesn't mean just because you're not in the starting lineup that you're not going to be in play, because one of the centers that I have a lot of interest in, we mentioned him, it's Robert Williams. The guy's just a point per minute monster. He's been playing decent minutes in the bubble, in the teens, sometimes even in the lower teens, like that game against Brooklyn. And just look at what he's doing as a point per minute monster. Last game, 14 minutes, 25 DK points against Brooklyn. 19 minutes, he put up 35 DK points. He's a blocks machine. So I'm going to have a ton of interest in Robert Williams. But before I just go off and start talking about all the Celtics I like, I'll let you take the floor. I'm a gentleman. So
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
why don't you talk to about a handful of, I mean, give me your two favorite Celtics. Let's go with that.
I think it's going to be the two centers. I think it's going to be Robert Williams and Enes Kanter. I think there's very likely you get 48 minutes against of the Celtics center production against the Washington defense for what 6,600 combined. And then if you do that, that pretty much lets you do literally whatever else you want with the rest of your lineup. And Kanter is he's one of the only guys left in this rotation who's used to dealing with a big usage rate and actually being successful at doing so. So even if they don't overextend him, if he gets, I think probably 20, 22 minutes is pretty likely for him in this spot. He's had games where he's 1.8, 2 fantasy points per minute in the right spot. And I think that's my initial build lean is building through these two centers and then getting whatever else you want in your other positions.
I mean, you can't go wrong with either one of them. I've been trying to rattle my brain and try to think where the ownership goes between the two of them. I'd probably assume Robert Williams gets a little bit more ownership just for people that are like box score and game log watching, seeing those recent performances where he's putting up some pretty good points in little minutes, like I mentioned. But I'm on board. I like both those guys. I'm also pretty high on Semi Ojeleye. They just always play this guy a boatload of minutes, and he can rack it up in so many different ways. He's like the Kyle O'Quinn chalk. When you're not expecting it, he has the fat games, and sometimes when you're a little bit over expecting, and you're like maybe it could be like what we're looking at right now, he struggles. But I'm still willing to take the chance. 3,300 gets you good exposure. He matches up well against Rui, and that just makes the most sense to the guy that they might have on him. Grant Williams will spend some time on him, but Ojeleye has a motor. And he is a big-bodied boy. He's like a little bowling ball. But what about the backcourt? Yeah. Anybody you're targeting back there?
Yeah, I think maybe one of my semi-hot takes is I don't really want to play Wanamaker. They have, because we kind of went through all the guards they do have that they can get some good game experience here. And Wanamaker is going to be in their playoff rotation as a reserve. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that they would want to run him out there for 35 minutes. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say I don't expect like him necessarily to play 35, but I do think low 30s are definitely in the card. I mean, he's going to be a part of the rotation, but not like the main full. He's not necessarily playing backup point guard in the rotation. He's basically playing third string because the way that they rotate Smart, but I could still see him playing 32. It's a great matchup. But I'm with all that being said, I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning towards not playing him at the moment just because I expect him to be the chalkier of the Boston players. Yeah, everybody always goes to Wanamaker as soon as somebody's out.
And I think if you're building an optimal lineup and you needed that salary, which I don't necessarily think you do, I think you'd probably play him because I think 25 to 28 minutes are pretty safe. But again, I think this is like a really great spot for them to, get Javonte Green, to get Carson Edwards, to get Tremont Waters, to get Romeo Langford, get these guys some real game experience, when these guys likely aren't going to touch the playoffs. And like you said, what you said is true with Wanamaker, he's probably like the 9th or 10th guy in the rotation. If something does happen, to Smart or Kemba or Jalen, he'd be kind of the next guy. He'd be the next guy up. So I think in tournaments, I would look to kind of one of these cheaper guards as a pivot off Wanamaker to make yourself different.
Yeah, and I think Langford would be the guy that I'm looking to if you're looking at one of those cheaper guards. We've seen, I think it was like once or twice during the season where it was garbage time or all the starters were resting, and Langford was able to pour on a couple points. He's not shy to shoot. One of the top prospects at one point. At one point in time, I think he was a consensus like top 5 pick, beginning of the college season or somewhere towards the middle. He was supposed to be up there, but We have a lot of options, a lot of value in that game, but we'll keep it moving to the next game, my good friend. We have the Sacramento Kings going against the Los Angeles Lakers. There has not yet been a spread release for this game, and that's in part due to some of the injury news that we have to keep an eye on. So as far as Sacramento goes, there are some people resting. De'Aaron Fox, Rashawn Holmes, Kent Bazemore. They will all be out, and it's actually not necessarily just rest. They're pretty much all dealing with injuries. Kent Bazemore with his calf, Holmes with his hip, and then Fox with the shoulder. Everybody else is pretty much good for Sacramento. And then on the Lakers, we have some things to keep an eye on. It looks like Caldwell Pope will not play. Not too sure if it is rest. That's what I'm kind of gearing that up towards. Alex Caruso has been dealing with a neck injury, though, and he's also sitting. And then Anthony Davis is currently being considered questionable, sore right knee. We know the deal with him. LeBron James has that questionable tag for his groin, but he's being treated and listed as probable. And then the regular other backcourt injuries with Rondo and Bradley being away from the bubble. So we'll start with this Kings team. De'Aaron Fox out for the second game in a row. Same thing with Holmes and Bazemore. Who do you look to capitalize off that usage with all three of those guys out?
Yeah, so in their last game against the Pelicans, Bogdanovich, Bjelica, Barnes, and Corey Joseph all played into the mid-30s. So that honestly, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Just from like, why would you, the season's over, why are you running kind of your core rotation pieces that many minutes? So I'm a little skeptical of kind of these guys' minute ceiling. I think you could see a lot of Daquan Jeffries. I think you can see some Kyle Guy, some Justin James, some of the younger Kings players who haven't really gotten a look so far in the bubble and getting them some game experience. But again, if you're playing this 2-game slate, you kind of have to spend somewhere. And Bogdanovich, I think he's your guy from the Kings. His usage rate has been just really, really elevated the last 3 or 4 games. He's basically the de facto point guard with Corey Joseph kind of standing in the corner. So even if he does get kind of a minutes reduction to 25 to 28, somewhere around there, I think he's still, just from a raw points perspective, he's going to be the best play on the Kings.
Yeah, I think he's got to be the top option. Just the way how well he's been playing, his minutes being so secure, playing big minutes. Played 38 minutes in that last game, and he has not scored anything less than 34 DK points, which is more than value on 6,400 over the past 4 games. So yeah, tough matchup. Don't get me wrong, but we're going to be spending up on some guys, and I think he is the top option on the Kings. And if I had to go with the number 2, I'm looking at Harry Giles, man. I have some interest in Harry Giles. Came out and balled off the bench in that last one, 25 minutes, 6 of 17 shooting, put up a nice double-double, almost fouled out, but who knows, probably could have played a couple extra minutes if he didn't have 5 fouls at the time. But, this Lakers team, they play big. We know that. With Rashawn Holmes out, Jabari Parker barely sniffs the court and don't even worry about thinking about his name. There's only Alex Len and Harry Giles left, and Len was dealing with an injury up until a few games ago, has been limited since his return. The most he's really played was 16 minutes. But I think both these guys are very much in play. I feel a little safer with Giles. Len will probably draw the start again. But if one of these guys plays 25 to 30 minutes, they're in a smash spot. So I don't mind taking a look at both those guys. And then I would say Bogdanovich is up there as well.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Giles, I think he's another one of those young guys where, if the Walton kind of dials back the Bjelica, Barnes, kind of the main key guys, Giles is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that minutes wise. So yeah, it's a great call.
Anybody else you're looking for on Sacramento?
Again, it's kind of just guys we have to spend money on. I mean, I think you can go to Buddy Hield, even though he's been awful, but he's going to be on the court. I'm just kind of scared of this game in general, just from a minutes volatility standpoint.
Yeah, I hear that. And that's the minute volatility is exactly why I cannot co-sign Buddy Hield. Even when they needed, like, playing that last game, you thought, with the guards out that they had, De'Aaron Fox was out, Bazemore was out. This was going to be the time that they're going to play Buddy Hield, but now Luke Walton still did not play him. He hates him. He really, like, if you're not going to play him in that last game, I don't see a good time to play him. So I just can't get behind it, just with the simple fact of they literally hate this dude more than anything. I've never seen any, which is crazy because at this point last year they were hyping, they loved him. Vladi was saying nothing but good things, how he deserved all this money. But who knows if this is coming from the top down or if this is just it sounds like it feels like it's got Walton's wrongdoings all over it.
No, it's in, he's kind of refused to play him, Bogdanovich, and Fox together all season, which, the Kings are not a great team in the first place, but it makes more sense to me just to get your best players on the court and let them figure it out. And that's kind of just been a whole thing the whole year with the Kings. So he probably gets traded in the offseason. That's my guess.
I think that's what everybody in the situation is hoping for at this point. But we'll go to the Lakers now. We talked about some of the injuries in the backcourt, Caldwell Pope, Caruso, Davis being questionable. We'll start at the top. LeBron James, sure, we'll have money for him. Is there any reason why we should not play LeBron James?
No, you just lock him in. He's by far the highest raw points projection on the slate. There's so much value that you can still make unique lineups around him to be different in tournaments where you can leave 2K, even 3K off the table, and you can still make a really great team. So I think rather than try to get fancy and fade him, I think you just play him and then you get unique around him.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's kind of like the same situation that we saw today with James Harden. People were a little worried they might play limited minutes, but with all the value it had, the raw points projection that he was looking at with Westbrook out, it's just lock him in. And that's how I feel about this 2-game slate with LeBron. And with Davis out, I think Kuzma just becomes another smash play. I don't know if it's going to be a game-winning shot, Kuzma. But,
right.
Hey, he gets a ton of usage. And if he's got the confidence right now, I don't mind looking at him. Outside of that, I like to target shooting guards versus the Kings, man. That's kind of my thing. And
Okay.
I might be looking at a little Dion Waiters. I don't love it. I don't feel awfully confident. But the minutes have been there the past 3 games, 27, 25, and 26. And he is a shooting guard going against the Kings. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of this whole slate is just so volatile, where I think Dion is one of those guys where, in a LeBron lineup, maybe you leave, 2K off, where maybe you go down to Dion over Troy Brown, but Dion ends up getting 34 minutes. Troy Brown ends up, in the mid-20s, something like that. That can win you a tournament, and that's perfectly viable on this slate. Yeah, or playing both, it's so yeah, I think you got to get a little weird on these kind of short 2-game slates, and especially with kind of the situation all 4 of these teams are in, where there's not a whole lot to play for. It's just look to be unique. I would not spend all your salary if you can help it, and just look to build around LeBron in as a unique way as possible.
Yes, sir. And we have plenty of options, different value spots to go with. So, let's keep it moving now, man. We spent some time on that, so we're gonna motor through. We got 5 games. This is the main slate, the one that will be more popular. A lot of people working during the day might not be able to get ready for those early slates. So, we'll start at Milwaukee, Memphis, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time game. At the moment, as far as a spread is concerned for this one, they have not yet released one. And that's pretty much going to be the theme for all of these games, but what it looks like at one of them has a spread release at the moment. But injuries are a real thing as well. So for Memphis, it's really just looking like Jared Jackson Jr. and Tyus Jones, Justice Winslow, all of them are out. Ersan Ilyasova is being considered or being listed as questionable. Right elbow strain. Wesley Matthews is out. And as we know, Giannis, the headbutter,
The headbutter
is suspended 1 game. So, and with all that happening, don't be surprised. It is the first game on the slate. We might hear a little bit more trickle down stuff because, that's just the way the Bucks roll. They're not really playing for anything right now. But on the other side, we know Memphis is playing for their playoff hopes at the moment. The wheels kind of fell off during the bubble. And we know that they're going to probably play most of their guys big minutes. So we'll start with this Milwaukee team. With Giannis out, are you looking to target anybody over there?
Yeah, I think we're more than likely going to see Middleton, Brooks, and Bledsoe all ruled out kind of once we get closer to lock. I just don't see any reason why they would play those guys. I think there would be some merit if you wanted to get, maybe a couple like playoff, different rotations with Giannis in there, maybe give those guys like 18 to 20 minutes, sit them in the second half, kind of as a little tune-up game. But without Giannis in there, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for the Bucks to play their main guys. So right now, I'm kind of operating under the guise of those players are sitting. So if that's the case, I think Frank Mason would become a must play. 4,300. He really played well in that Washington game. Really controlled the ball, and he's definitely not afraid to shoot. In a fast up tempo matchup against Memphis, I think he'd be a staple if those guys get ruled out. I would also look to DJ Wilson as another kind of maybe lower owned guy if all these Bucks veterans get ruled out, and then they kind of just throw him to the Wolves and say, hey, go play 35, 40 minutes type of thing as a young guy. Again, this is definitely something tomorrow, I guess today when when the podcast comes out to watch, but I fully expect we're going to see more people sit on Milwaukee. And so I think guys like Frank Mason, Sterling Brown, DJ Wilson would be some of the best value on the slate.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you on it. I'm just not completely ready to just rule the starters out just yet, knowing that Middleton and Bledsoe, they both rested going in that Washington game. They kind of sat out on Tuesday, so there's a decent chance that they do end up playing in this game. Do they play a full complement of minutes? That I don't know. They might just play 2 quarters, end up getting pulled at half, and never coming back in. So I can see it going both ways, and with that kind of weird little mystery in limbo kind of sort of minutes rotation, I don't have a lot of confidence in necessarily paying for these guys either. 8,300. Right. If I knew I was getting 30 plus minutes out of Middleton at 8,300, no Giannis, I'd be okay with that. I think that's a fair price tag for that kind of situation. And Bledsoe at 58, same thing. Maybe you lean more towards Bledsoe just because you're getting such a discount, and if he only plays 2 quarters, he can still do pretty good damage with that. But otherwise, I'd have to see these guys ruled out, and we will have that news prior. But if they are ruled out, Frank Mason, I'm with you. Fantastic play. DJ Wilson, another guy I'd be looking at. Dante DiVincenzo is pretty firmly in the rotation, and then I'd be looking at a guy like Sterling Brown. He played well off the bench, took 16 shot attempts in that Washington game, 30 minutes. Probably be looking at those 3 guys in the scenario that they sit.
Yeah, agreed. If those guys do end up playing, I just don't I don't see a path for them getting to even 25 minutes. So they would be firmly out of play for me.
Yeah, and you're paying premium price, but this Memphis team's a different story. These guys are ready to play. They're playing for their playoff hopes right now. We could probably expect a full complement of minutes from anybody that can handle them. So we'll start, man. Memphis, who are you looking at?
Yeah, so a theme of this slate for me is making sure your spends are on teams, stars that still care about playing. So I think Ja Morant, he kind of firmly fits into this category, and his minutes, just floor, has been one of the best in the entire bubble. In a must-win game with Giannis, the Bucks' defense was historically great this season, but no Giannis on the floor. I think you're very likely going to see more of their starters sit. It's going to be an up-tempo matchup. Milwaukee is one of the faster teams in the league. Memphis played extremely fast this year. I don't know exactly if he fits perfectly into roster construction because we're going to talk about Dame Lillard and Dejounte Murray and possibly if Frank Mason value opens up. But John Morant, he's a core piece for me.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. The price tag's up, but the minutes have been up as well. So as long as he's going to be playing close to 38, 37 to 40 something minutes, 42 in that last one against Boston, I'm okay with that. No worries paying that price tag with a guy playing that many minutes. And he is going to garner insane usage. Not the best matchup, but I get why he's $9,000.
Right.
All right, man. What about anybody in the front court? Brandon Clark, Jonas? You have any interest in either one of those guys?
Not especially. I think you can play Jonas in tournaments as like a more direct pivot off DeAndre Ayton, I think he's gonna be extremely popular, and I think Jonas is $400 less. But if Jonas does have to see Brook Lopez for 15 to 20 minutes, that's a really tough defensive matchup. If those guys get rolled out, that obviously boosts Jonas significantly, and so he would be the guy I would look towards, just because it's the must-win game. He's a fantasy point per minute monster. If we can get him towards 30 minutes, he's going to be one of the better plays on the slate. Everyone else, not so much. Brandon Clark, he's been okay, but we haven't really seen a minute ceiling from him. He's kind of just fallen into that 25 to 28, 29 minute range. And you can play Dylan Brooks in tournaments. That dude just loves nothing more than chucking the basketball. He's still reasonably priced too at $5,500. But I think with him too, I would want more of the Milwaukee starters out because this is a more tougher matchup for Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for basically everybody. If Jonas, I'm with you. He's one of the best point per minute guys in the NBA. Where if he was playing 30+ minutes, I'd be all over that. And he very well might. I mean, if we end up seeing Brook Lopez only plays the first quarter or two, that doesn't mean that they're not going to take advantage of Jonas going against the bench mob that the Bucks do have. So
right.
I wouldn't mind taking a look. He'd be a tournament play for me. I wouldn't trust him as much in cash just because we know how volatile those minutes can be. Morant, you could play either one. Clark, probably a better cash play as opposed to Jonas being the tournament play. And then I can see you using a guy like Grayson Allen here and there if he just rounds out a lineup perfectly. The minutes have been consistent. Basically playing at least like 25 plus over the past 4 games, and he is pretty much getting about 5x in most of those as well. So wouldn't mind taking a look at him, but not like confidence really in a GPP. I just don't see him dropping 35 or 40 DK points. Anybody else? You ready to move on to the next one?
Let's move on.
Dallas Mavericks going against the Phoenix Suns. No spread released on this one just yet, but as far as injuries are concerned, Seth Curry for Dallas is being considered questionable, right leg soreness. Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber are both probable. Courtney Lee is out, and Kristaps Porzingis is being considered questionable with a left heel contusion. And then for Phoenix, Cam Johnson is probable, and Kelly Oubre Jr. is doubtful. So let's start off with this Mavericks team. You playing Luka at 11-4?
I am not playing Luka at 11-4. I think this is Kristaps is questionable. So he would get that really great usage boost if he didn't play, but I don't think the minutes are going to be there. They've really been playing Luka a ton the whole bubble. His last game against Portland at 35 minutes was his lowest minutes output of the bubble. I think this would be a spot, I think they'd ideally like to get him to 28, 30 minutes. They don't have anything left to play for. I'd much rather spend on a couple other guys. I'd rather play Ja, I'd rather play Booker, I'd rather play DeAndre Ayton. Just guys we know that, they have to be locked into 35 plus minutes in their game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Luka 11-4. It's a premium price tag, and at this point, Mavs aren't playing for anything. So you're paying that premium price. Could you pay it off? Absolutely, it's Luka Doncic, but there's other guys that are high up. We'll get to Damian Lillard later on, where must-win situation. It's hard not to want to spend up, or just Devin Booker on the other side. A couple other guys that we could look at. There is one guy though that is standing out to me, man, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my boy, and that's Boban.
Okay.
Kristaps being questionable. If he does sit, I think we might see a little bit of Boban starting action. When we look to that, and on the first half of that back-to-back where Kristaps sat, that's the game Boban started, played 25 minutes. And it did Boban-like things. Anytime we know this guy's on the court, he's just a mammoth of a man and grabs every rebound, blocks every shot, smiles while doing so, and just toys with everybody. So keep an eye on that. If Kristaps is out, I'd have some interest in him. Outside of that, man, I really don't have a lot of interest on this Dallas team.
Yeah, I think it's a tough spot to go to. Just, I really like the Boban call. I think he firmly becomes in play. They like to run him out there in games where they're not really playing anybody. Maxi Kleber, he's going to be a part of their playoff rotation. So I would be really shocked and he's kind of been dealing with injuries the last couple games. So I'd be surprised if they ran him out for significant minutes. Then just if Kristaps is out, I think anytime you can project Boban for 20 or so minutes, like it's just full go time.
Oh yeah, I'll play him at like 15 half the time.
Yeah.
And if he's near minimum salary, he'd probably get you 25 at 15.
Yeah.
We'll take that, but we'll slide over to this Phoenix side of the team, side of the ball. We just talked about Devin Booker, 9,800. It's a big price tag for him, but Phoenix has been hot. He's arguably the hottest player in the bubble right now, and they're in a must-win situation as well. So why don't you break it down? Devin Booker, 9,800. I think he's going to be on a lot of people's radar, so we don't need to spend too much time on him. But what about some of these other guys over here on Phoenix?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say is, points are going to be at a premium on this slate. So while guys like Booker, Ja, and Damian Lillard all got pretty significant price boosts, it's probably not enough just because we know these guys are going to be on the floor. They're going to be taking a bunch of shots, and we don't really have to question, if maybe they get sat the whole fourth quarter or something like that. So I think Booker and Ayton I would have in just about every lineup I make today. Just because we're so secure in what we think their minutes expectation is going to be. Outside of them, I think you can look to pretty much everyone on this team. I think Bridges is still cheap at 5,300. Cam Johnson 5,100, and it's like these are guys we can trust. Trust their minutes, and that's so valuable on this slate. So it definitely comes down to your roster construction, but I wouldn't X out anyone. As far as the ancillary guys, Rubio is probably more of a tournament play at 7,300, just because he's kind of been the one guy they've been a little hesitant to kind of bump past 30 minutes. But there's definitely a scenario if it's a close game down at the end, they have to get him up to 34, 35 minutes. That can be a tournament winning upside play. But yeah, I think just pretty much everyone. I don't think you X out anyone on this team.
I don't even need to say anything else. I think you said it perfectly. I think Booker, Ayton, great plays. Rubio makes a fantastic tournament play. He crushes Dallas. Great point per minute producer against Dallas, but depending on the minutes, that might not be enough with some of these other guys that we're going to have available. If he plays 30-plus, though, I would be locking him in if I knew he was playing 30-plus minutes. I have interest in all three of those guys. I have a slight less interest on the peripheral guys, though. Bridges shot 8 of 10 in that last game. I don't know if that's going to happen again. Cam Johnson didn't hit all of his big games that he's had. They generally involved close to double-digit rebounds. So I wouldn't mind it if I landed on them, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to play them either. But I think the studs are lock and loads. Let's go. You could play both. You could play either one, and I would have no qualms with that.
Yep.
All right, man. Keep it moving. 6:30 game. San Antonio Spurs going against the Utah Jazz. There is no spread yet released for either one of these teams, or a game total for that matter. As far as Spurs are concerned, Bryn Forbes, it has been ruled out, right quad tightness. And then Tyler Zeller has also been ruled out, right knee bone bruise. So Jazz are going to be without Conley, Conley and Gobert are both out, and then Emmanuel Mudiay is being considered questionable left knee soreness. Wouldn't be shocked if he sits though with just any remote injury, knowing the Jazz are pretty much locked in at the moment. So why don't you talk about this San Antonio team? Both Murray and White will be in the lineup, so we're going to have to make the decision. Which one of those two do you prefer?
Yeah, I think again, this is another one of those teams where I think the Spurs should be a real focus of the guys you're building your lineups with. It's another must-win game. It's a very winnable game. The without Gobert, the Utah defense is obviously going to be significantly weaker. But between Murray and White, I always go Murray. I think he's just the higher upside. He's the higher floor ceiling combination player for me. White basically has to shoot really well in order to hit his ceiling. But I think you can easily make lineups where you play both. It's just another one of these situations where we feel really good about where these guys' minutes are going to be in a close game. But I would lean Murray between the two of them.
All right. I like them both. If push comes to shove and I had to pick one of them, I'd probably go Murray too. But that $600 discount, White being shooting guard eligible, definitely keeps him in play for me as well. Anybody else on the Spurs that have your focus right now?
Yeah, I think DeRozan is going to get lost a little bit in tournaments. I think people are immediately going to go to Booker and Ayton just because how good they've been. They're going to go to Dame Lillard. They're going to go to Ja. And then after that, you kind of run out of money if you're prioritizing those guys. The price tag isn't amazing on DeRozan, but again, it's one of those situations where we have to really focus in on these guys who have something to play for. So I would really look to DeRozan as a good GPP pivot.
It's as fair of a price as a price that can be fair goods. 8,100 is like right around where DeRozan always is, between that 77 and 81. Yeah. I'm with you, man. They're playing for something, so I don't mind looking at any of the guys that we mentioned. I probably won't go to guys like Jakob Poeltl, Rudy Gay. I wouldn't mind, but I'm generally not playing Rudy Gay too much. But and then Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, both those guys are excellent plays, but they're getting priced up. But again, they fall in that category. If I land on them, I don't mind them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play them either.
Yep.
Utah, Conley, Gobert, both out. Probably going to be without Mudiay as well. Who stands out to you that we can rely on and trust in this lineup?
Can I say nobody? Just the way the Jazz have operated their rotations. I don't know if it was last game or the game before where there was just no word of when they just sat everybody the second half. I can easily see a situation where something is similar again. I think you can probably look to Tony Bradley at 3,400. He'd be my favorite play in this game. But again, there's probably other better values, and he is only center eligible, which definitely hurts a little bit. But like Donovan Mitchell, 8,200, I guess in a large field tournament. But there's just 5 or 6 guys I'd rather spend on rather than spend 8,200 for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean he's coming off of overtime game where he had 58.5 DK points, so I'm kind of with you. I'll let other people chase that, and I'm not confident in his minutes. But Tony Bradley, I think he's a fantastic play. With these guys off the floor, he's averaging 1.19 DK points per minute. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to come out and play 30 minutes, but we see what he can do with limited minutes. I think that last game where he was given, I think it was like 20 minutes or so, came out and put up a whopper of a DK game with 41.75 DK points. So 3 blocks, 11 boards, 15 points. He is a dunker. And I don't mind taking a couple shots at him. And then, outside of that, you could look at Jordan Clarkson. He has a significant role as well. So if you think that Donovan Mitchell might get limited, well, Jordan Clarkson probably will too.
Exactly.
So just keep that in mind. I mean, he is a guy that could, light it up pretty quickly. He doesn't need 30 minutes. He gets it done generally anywhere between 22 and 25 anyway. And that's exactly why I think I'll keep him on my radar. So for me, it's going to be Bradley and Clarkson mostly. Probably won't go near Ingles. And, maybe we could look at a guy like Darius Wright Foreman, but I don't know if I'm going to go dumpster diving too hard that way. He has played 15 and 11 minutes over the past few games. And maybe if Moutier's out, we see him play 20. But
it could get there. I just think overall Utah, I think this is a really good example of a team that there's some good plays. I think Tony Bradley is probably a legitimate value play that you should look at, but everyone else is just, we have no idea what the minutes are going to be. The key rotation guys are very likely going to be limited. We have better spots to spend on. I think this is just largely an avoid spot.
Absolutely. So we'll just avoid talking about it anymore and just keep on moving. Before we jump into the second to last game of the night, just a quick shout out to our presenting sponsors, MyBookie. These guys are absolutely fantastic. They are crushing it. And we're going to be having some good news come rolling down through the pipeline pretty soon, and that we're going to be bringing back some of these hoop ball DFS contests that we used to do. Where maybe it's once a week we get together with some of our listeners, a nice listener contest. A few of our pros will be in there as well, usually around anywhere between 25 and 100 people, with a couple free prizes along with cash prizes from the entry fees as well. So we're going to be having some things. I know we're in the works. One of the first and top prizes will be a free membership over at MyBookie, where you can go experience all the good stuff that we're talking about. But hey, if you don't win, it's okay. You can still go over there and use the promo code HoopBall, and you can get a deposit match bonus. So go over to MyBookie, check them out, guys. We got baseball, we have basketball, football's around the corner. Get some bets in there and enjoy yourself. Only the one, MyBookie. So 2 games left, my good friend. And it's the Portland Trailblazers going against the Brooklyn Nets. As far as a spread or a game total, we have one. This is the one that we did have. It's a 236 total. Portland's being favored by 9 points against this Brooklyn team. As far as injuries are concerned, it doesn't look like we're going to have too much to talk about for the Nets. Chris Jones are questionable, right abductor. Jamal Crawford's still out. Dante Hall questionable, right ankle sprain. And then I believe for Portland, I believe everybody's pretty much going to play, but CJ McCollum is playing through a fracture in his lower back. Here I am, getting up off my couch complaining about back pain. CJ McCollum is, still shooting at an elite clip outside of that last game with a fractured back. I will not complain for at least a week, but I can't promise it'll be much less than or much more than that. So we'll start with Portland. 11-2 Dame. He's right up there now. He's priced right next to Doncic. And I think they do that for a reason. It's the only player that kind of makes sense that, if you're going to fade one for the other, I get it. Damien Lillard, though, man, the things he's doing, dropped 61 actual points in that last game. I mean, fade him at your own risk at this point. Yeah, they bumped him up as high as you can get bumped up, but I don't know if I can fade him with how he's been taking over, the statements he's been making. It seems next to impossible to do.
Yeah, I think probably the only reservation I would have is kind of their last 4 games. This run that he's been on. It's kind of been pretty good teams. Against Dallas, against Philly, against the Clippers, against Denver, and all those games have been really close and competitive, which has really helped his minute ceiling. And, of course, he's been shooting the lights out. So, I mean, with him at this tag, he basically has to keep shooting the same way he has been in order to pay it off. But, again, it's, I think Dame is probably going to be the best raw points projected player on the slate. Those are at a real premium on this slate. And, if this game does stay close, Dame's going to be out there again for 40 minutes. So I think he does depend a little more on the value that opens up, because I do think we will see more value as we get closer to lock time. But yeah, I mean, there's just really nothing to say.
What if I told you when he played Brooklyn earlier in the year, he played 40 minutes and put up 75 DK points against them?
Yeah, not surprising against the Brooklyn defense.
And scored 60 actual points. I mean, and I'd probably feel more confident if Brooklyn had their backups in, because for some reason when they rest their starters, they're more competitive against good teams. I mean, they beat the Bucks, and in that last game they held their own as well. So it would probably be better if they just rested their guys at this point. But I have no fear with Lillard, especially now that the news came out. McCollum's been struggling through an injury. It's such an important game. Nurkic's also in a great spot. I just don't think I could pay that 9,200. He should be able to absolutely smash this spot, but even if he smashes, it's still going to take 50-plus points for him to really pay off that $9,200 salary. And at that point, just spend the extra $2,000 for me. I'll take me some Dame. Like I said, not touching CJ. And Melo's been balling out, but he's seeing a little bit of a price increase as well. 6,300.
Yeah, that's too expensive.
It is. He's one of those guys, if I land on Melo, I don't mind. But then half the time I have Lillard already in the lineup, and I'm looking at it like, do I want to play both of them? And I kind of toss back and forth. But he makes sense if maybe you're fading Lillard and you still want to get some exposure to this game. That's where I look at Melo. I still prefer Melo over CJ McCollum. So maybe in my lineups where I'm not playing Lillard, I probably won't have too much Nurkic either way. I'll look at a little bit of Carmelo Anthony. Any interest in Gary Trent Jr.?
I mean, I think so. I think he's kind of in that Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker tier of kind of what I've been talking about the whole podcast of, these are the guys we want to be filling out our lineups with, that we feel good about their minutes. We know the team has something to play for. They've been playing well. They're in the rotation. I think it's probably under a normal circumstance too expensive of a price tag, but if he kind of fits into your lineup and you're getting access to one of the better game environments on the slate, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I got a little interest in him. I don't mind taking a look at him, but I don't know if I'll end up landing on him. He's been balling out, but very, very score reliant. So 5K, I probably prefer those Spurs guys I think over him, but we shall see. Ready to slide over to the Brooklyn side of the ball?
Let's do it.
Caris LeVert, $8,000. Playing in this game, played 35 minutes in that last one, put up at least 45 DK points in 3 of the last 4 games, and I don't mind playing some Caris LeVert at 8K. If you're looking to get some sort of game stack scenario, if you are playing Lillard, you're going to want to run it back with at least 1 or 2 of these guys from Brooklyn and hope that they can keep it close. And the 2 top options for me are the 2 top options on their team, Jared Allen and Caris LeVert. I think both these guys. I'm expecting probably about 30 to 35 minutes from them. Just knowing that if they're going to play them, they're probably going to play them. They know they're playing for nothing at this point, and that didn't stop them from playing 35, 36 minutes in that last one either.
Yeah, I think there's kind of something to be said for, they can play spoiler to Portland. The Blazers are the last of the Western Conference playoff teams to get in. So, I mean, I think that can definitely be motivating for these guys. And I think you hit it right on the head, that if they didn't want to play these guys, that they would just sit them. But the fact that they're available to play, I think we can expect pretty close to normal run. And yeah, I think Caris is an amazing tournament play. I think he's just going to get lost. I think he's going to get lost a little bit on the slate with kind of some of these other priority spends. So I would really look to him in tournaments.
I'm thinking the exact same thing with people spending up on guys like Lillard, immediately gravitating towards Ja Morant at only 1,000 more, knowing how much minutes he's going to be playing. Looking at the guys over there in Phoenix, same almost same price as a guy like Ayton. So I see him getting overlooked for a lot of those other guys in more prominent positions. But if he's still playing 36 minutes, this guy's going to have one of the highest usages in the bubble with the starters that they run alongside of him. Only other guy I'm probably really looking at might be a guy like, maybe Joe Harris. Tyler Johnson's been playing a little bit better. With Chris Chio's out, he'll probably see a few extra point guard minutes, and that will surely help. 5,100 is not a bad price tag, but not one that I'm necessarily gravitating towards as well. Probably just going to be, LeVert, Allen, and then maybe I'll sprinkle in a tiny bit of either like a Joe Harris or a Tyler Johnson as well.
Yeah, I think Joe Harris would kind of firmly be. He's right there price wise with Cam Johnson, kind of all these kind of $5,100, $5,200 shooting guard, small forwards that we've been talking about. And again, one of the best game environments on the slate. He's going to be probably lower owned than those guys, and Portland can't really defend a pine cone. So I think he's a great pivot.
I like that. He couldn't. I don't. I'm trying to picture that because I used to have like pine cone trees in my front yard, and when we were younger, we'd get off the school bus and have like pine cone wars. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's pretty tough to defend yourself against a pine cone, like just kind of like twirling right at you. Those things hurt. You get covered in tree sap. So I like that. That's pretty. All right. Well, I agree. I think I would probably prefer Joe Harris over those other guys in that middling range. Personally, just makes it easier. If I can't afford a guy like LeVert, I could still run back some Dame with somebody else on the other team. But let's move on to the last game, final game of the night. New Orleans Pelicans going against the Orlando Magic. There is no game total for this game either, and that's because it's pretty much injury city at the moment. New Orleans Pelicans, Josh Hart questionable, right knee soreness, Drew Holiday, Ingram, Zion all being ruled out. As far as the Magic, Carter Williams, he is out. So is Fournier, Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaac, as we know, tore his ACL. All four of them will be out. So, wow. I mean, we kind of saw some of these young guns from New Orleans, and it was some of that value that we had available. And do you think he's going to be available tonight again?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very likely. JJ Redick ended up not playing right against the Kings. I'm pretty sure, even though he didn't get ruled out. But there's just no reason for them to play him or Derek Favors and kind of risk these guys' injury. And they do have some bodies behind them where they can really who can soak up the time. So yeah, I think Jackson Hayes kind of is right there with Tony Bradley as a kind of a value center option. And it is a tougher matchup, but I think I want to operate under the assumption that Vooch is going to sit. They did not extend him at all against Brooklyn. He only played 21 minutes when they had the game wrapped up. Do you see any reason why they would play him in this spot, especially with kind of the rest of their core rotation guys are going to be out?
I mean, the only thing that could stand out in my mind a reason why they would play him is just to keep that rhythm. Some of these starters, that's why you see them play half the game and they get taken out. It's just because you don't want to give a guy too many days off, kind of like almost with a pitcher in baseball, where sometimes more days off are more harmful than they are good. And it can also, with all these guys out, these starters out, because Aaron Gordon City is going to be ready to play when playoffs roll around. It allows Vucevic to maybe build some confidence with his shot and not having to share, I guess, and a good chance to get some Markelle Fultz a little extra run, and so I see the reasoning on why they might give some of these guys some minutes. Does that mean I'm going to gravitate towards them and play them? No, I mean I don't feel confident in it, but I can see the reasoning on why they might.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if there's a whole lot of if Vooch is beating up Jackson Hayes, the tiny little 19-year-old rookie, okay, maybe that is a good confidence booster, but I think I want to operate under the assumption that Vooch is out. But sorry, I got a little sidetracked there.
No, that's okay. I mean, hey, listen, man. I mean, that's the whole point is to talk these things through. The night before it's an early look. It's a good idea to kind of talk about this stuff because if you're prepared and you're thinking about it now, you're going to be twice as ready as everybody else once that news actually does break.
Right. And yeah, I think, but back to the Pelicans, I think Jackson Hayes is going to be firmly in play. I think you'll probably have a real decision to play either him or Tony Bradley. I don't know if you can play both or if you necessarily need to play both, especially because we want to jam a lot of point guards and guards and on this slate. Yeah, I don't know. I think between Bradley and Jackson Hayes, which way would you lean?
I'd probably lean towards Bradley. I think. I don't like targeting anybody against Orlando, even with their starters out. They could just limit it, and they still have Nicole Melly. They'll play Melly a little bit. Favors, you know, he's not ruled out yet. Does he go out there and play a ton of minutes? Does he play at all? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And then they still have Jahlil Okafor down there as well. He's creeping. He's alive, and he actually outplayed Jackson Hayes in that last one at only 3,400. Played more minutes. And actually put up 21 points on 9 of 11 shooting. So
Yeah.
you can even look at him as well. So that's probably I feel more comfortable with Bradley, just because with Jackson Hayes and Okafor, it's almost a toss up. Wouldn't shock me if either one of those guys has a bigger game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of depends on who's playing well. If Hayes is playing well, he'll get the extra run. If Okafor is, he'll get the extra run. That's kind of how they've always operated. Those two guys throughout the season is the hot hand approach.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy that has I have the most interest in is going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I love this kid.
Yeah.
I think he's a stud. I think he's a future. I don't know. I'm not going to call him like an all-star or anything, but he has a bright future in the league. He's somebody that fell in the draft probably way too far compared to where he should have went. But he played 25 minutes in that last one with the starters out. Wasn't shy. Took 10 shot attempts. Only shot 3 of 10. Still put up 23 DK points. Had 6 assists. Didn't even grab a board. And he's long. He can get steals. He can get blocks. And with Josh Hart being questionable, if he gets ruled out, it's only going to be a couple more minutes for him. So I don't mind taking a look at Nickeil Alexander-Walker for some value. Those two centers, like you mentioned, Jackson Hayes, Jahlil Okafor, I think both those guys are very much in play. And then, I mean, if Lonzo was playing 30-plus minutes, I'd have interest in him. But he only played 29 in that game against Sacramento. And wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play much more. And listen, his best part of his game is being able to distribute, and the guys that he's going to be passing to aren't the same normal guys that finish at a high clip. So
he needs that talent. He needs that talent around him to maximize his ceiling.
Absolutely. And there are the random games where Lonzo, I mean, he has been shooting much better this season. Even right before we came into the bubble, he was knocking down threes at an elite clip for a little while. Don't expect that to be the case necessarily in this game, and it's most likely gonna have a slower pace, and I'm expected to be one of the lower game totals, probably maybe second lowest on the day next to that San Antonio Utah game.
Agreed.
All right, brother. Let's slide it over to Orlando. Everybody out: Gordon, Fournier, Ross, Isaac. We talked about all these guys. Who are you looking at, if anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went into it a little bit, just kind of speculating that, if Vooch does play or if Vooch sits, I think I would have a lot of interest in Mo Bamba as, someone maybe they want to get an extended look, kind of as a lower owned tournament pivot off, Bradley or Jackson Hayes or someone like that. I kind of want to go back to the Markelle Fultz well in this one. He did only play 22 minutes. But I think he's a guy they want to keep his minutes ramped up, keep him kind of in that, late 20s, early 30s minutes range. And, he's going to be a really important part of their playoff rotation. And as a young guy, you're not as worried about him getting sat or, them really feeling like they have to limit him. Especially if, we do get Vooch out, I think a lot of that usage just funnels right into Fultz. So he is a little bit more expensive, 5,200, but I would really look to Fultz in this spot.
He's the only guy in the Magic I have any interest in. 5,200. Yet minutes might be limited to 2024, but the shot attempts and the usage have been there with these other guys out, with Fournier out, with Terrence Ross out, Aaron Gordon. Shot attempts have to come from somewhere, and he's taken 18 over the past 2 games and have hit 7 shots in both of them, giving him a nice little 5x return and then about an 8 to 9x return in the game prior to that one. So I have no problem looking at Fultz. Like I said, probably the only guy I have any interest. Don't fall into like that. Be careful with the Ken Birch. If we hear Mo Bamba's ruled out, because he did miss that last game, he was dealing with migraines. He's not on the injury report now. But who knows if it starts to pop back up? Maybe they don't take the chance. And if he's ruled out, you could look at a guy like Ken Birch. Outside of that, just Markelle Fultz for me.
Yep. I think this game is largely one you can not completely ignore, but if you're building cash teams or optimal lineups, I think you have plenty of options in the first 4 games as opposed to this one.
All right. I like it, man. That's it. A little longer than we'd like, about an hour and 4 minutes or so. So we thank you guys for listening and tuning in with us. As always, if you could follow us on Twitter, you'll find me at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. Aaron, want to let the good people know where they can find you?
Yep, I'm at Asmus Sports on Twitter, ASMUSSPORTS.
Absolutely. And if you guys can go on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you're listening, give us a thumbs up, nice rate review, leave us a comment. We'd love to see that good stuff. Raises the morale over here, lets us know that we're doing a good job, but it also allows you guys to have an input. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what you enjoy, and what you'd like to see next. We'll be back tomorrow. Looks like I will be on with Brenton, my good buddy from Australia out there. So, as always, for everybody over here at Hoop Ball, thank you for listening. Take care, and let's go out there and crush the slate, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.